Hello and welcome. You're watching Global Lens from the CNBC TV 18 Prime Ionic Wealth Studio. With me, Parikshit Luthra. These are the top global headlines we are tracking. US President Trump hints at additional tariffs on rice exported from other nations, including India. Says that he will take care of the alleged dumping. US is the fourth largest market for Indian basmati rice. President Trump allows NVIDIA to sell high-end AI chips to China. US government will get a 25% cut in yet another unusual agreement with a private company. NVIDIA is already paying a 15% cut to the US for selling a low-performing chip in China. President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is part of the consortium led by Paramount, which has launched a hostile takeover attempt for Warner Brothers Discovery. Sovereign wealth funds from Saudi, Qatar and Abu Dhabi are also funding Paramount. The Warner Brothers board have agreed to sell the company to Netflix for $72 billion. Our top focus: India's upcoming AI Impact Summit can potentially shift the global dialogue on artificial intelligence. New Delhi can position itself as a voice for the global south, advocate for AI that is inclusive, affordable and aligned with regional needs. At the G20 summit in November, Prime Minister Modi called for a global compact on AI to prevent its misuse and ensure it's transparent and safe, and also possibly starting a real conversation on AI governance without stifling innovation. As nations race to integrate AI into their economies, India's summit in February could set a new tone for international cooperation in artificial intelligence, prioritizing human-centric applications over just technological competition. How can India really achieve that? To discuss this at length, we're now joined by two very special guests, and this is part of our special series in collaboration with Center for Strategic and International Studies. Let me introduce to you Anjali Kaur, who is the former Deputy Assistant Administrator at USAID and CSIS Senior Associate. We also have with us Alpan Raval, who is a Chief Scientist at Wadhwani AI. Thank you very much for joining us. Anjali, if I could really begin with you right now. In the context of the global south and the needs of emerging economies, what is the opportunity for India to deliver at the upcoming India AI Action Summit?
Thanks so much, Parikshit. It's really great to be here, and it's great to be able to talk about why AI is so critical right now and why India matters and why this summit is so important as we speak. Remember, this is the first summit that's happening in the global south, which is so critical. Previous summits have always happened with the global north being featured, whether it be in France, in the UK, in Korea. And so that's why it's really critical right now that this summit is happening forward looking towards impact and not just thinking about regulation. And it's really thinking about what happens with the global south, the largest population that will be impacted by AI. And what makes India so important right now isn't just its size, it's the complexity of its population and the constraints that it operates under: 22 official languages, massive income diversity, low-cost devices, patchy connectivity. And this is the lived reality of most of the global south. And so because India has been able to build digital public infrastructure at a level that no other developing country has achieved, whether it's UPI or DigiLocker or Aadhaar, these systems weren't designed for abundance. They were really designed for the real conditions most countries face. And that's why India's AI journey and the summit truly matters, because when India builds AI models, they're really thinking about practical solutions developed under constraint. And that's exactly what makes them relevant for Nairobi, for Dhaka, for Manila, and beyond. And so when we talk about India representing the global south, it's not symbolic. India's truly demonstrating what inclusive, affordable, population scale AI can actually look like. And that flips the traditional story. And for the first time, the global north is learning from the global south on how to scale technology responsibly. And this is why the summit is so consequential. It's a chance to define what good AI looks like for the majority of humanity, not just the countries with the most compute. And India, I believe, is uniquely positioned to lead that conversation.
Okay, let me also get an Alpan at this point. Alpan, when it comes to the unique lessons from the India stack, our experience from delivering services to citizens using artificial intelligence, What are some of the solutions that India can offer via the India AI Action Summit to the Global South?
So India is very unique in what it can offer. It's a representative country for the Global South. We have probably the world's most diverse data sets. Even if they're siloed, we still have them. We have some of the largest data sets in the world because of our population as the largest country in the world. And we have a set of challenges and aspirations that reflect the aspirations and challenges of the Global South. And so I think that probably any challenge in the world is represented in some microcosm of India. In terms of specific solutions, we have a lot of work that we've done in public health, in agriculture, in primary education, where we can leverage data, we can leverage insights from data, and develop AI. And these are all solutions that we've developed here in-house. And these are examples for the world. And we should really think of AI in the Indian context, in the Global South context, as a human enabler rather than as something that is an automation engine, right? So the whole responsible AI debate, for example, takes a very different color in the Indian context. And I think the book on responsible AI is yet to be written for this context.
Right. Now, when it comes to the use of artificial intelligence in the Global South, and there is, of course, always a question, Anjali, about how much aid can you give to economies in the region. Now, there is a race between India and China. China wants to be the regional dominant partner. It has given billions in dollars to aid to many of the economies in India's neighborhood. Can India replace that with initiatives in artificial intelligence? Can AI initiatives really, do away with the need of giving development assistance and replace that?
I think that's a really great question. And, having spent my career doing development work, there's a lot of problems that we see with development. Sometimes it's too slow or it's too risk, averse, or often it's too disconnected from actual innovation ecosystems. And what we're seeing is that AI partnerships between governments, tech companies, civil society, they move a lot faster. They iterate better. They're less bureaucratic. So I understand why people think that AI might actually replace traditional aid, and I think this is really important, it can't actually replace the accountability and equity mandates that good development assistance have. And so at least they shouldn't be doing that. So what worries me is that tech partnerships can be extractive. They can prioritize commercial interest over community needs, and they can move fast and break things, right? But when you're breaking things like in public health or in education systems, people actually get affected. They get hurt by it. So I believe that AI shouldn't actually be replacing traditional development assistance. What they should be doing is exposing its failures and figuring out what's working and what's not working. And the future isn't development assistance or AI. It's taking the speed and innovation of AI partnerships and marrying them with the equity lens and the long-term commitment that good development actors actually bring. And so I believe, the idea isn't who naturally funds it. It's the question is, are marginalized communities better off? Are local institutions strengthened or weakened? Is this sustainable beyond a pilot? And so if AI partnerships can answer yes to all of those questions, and some can, then we're evolving development assistance, not replacing it. And we have to be really intentional about doing that.
All right. Let me also get in Alpan once again. Alpan, when it comes to the global compact around AI, something that the Prime Minister has spoken about, can the AI Action Summit really deliver that? Do you think both the developed and the developing world will come to a consensus? And without some sort of compact and regulatory framework that we agree upon voluntarily, can AI really help global good?
No, I agree that we do need a regulatory framework that we align with. It can't be a framework that's imposed from the West. It has to take into account the reality of Indian lived existence on the ground, right? It has to take into account privacy concerns that exist in India that may be very different from the types of privacy concerns that exist in the West. For example, you're looking at a population that is perhaps not so reticent about sharing their Aadhaar numbers, but have serious concerns about strangers touching their babies, for example, right? So that's a very type of privacy angle that we need to consider. Discussions around bias and fairness in the Indian context also tend to be different from the Western context. So I think, yes, a global compact is possible, but it has to take into account local lived experience in India. And I think once we take into account the concerns of the West, the concerns of the global South, and marry them into a single regulatory framework, I think that is what will spur innovation and sharing of innovation between the global South and the global North.
Right. Anjali, returning to you, what do you think success will look like for India at the AI Action Summit? And what can India do in terms of increasing investments in the global South on artificial intelligence to make sure that we're able to take our digital initiatives to other nations which really need them? We are bringing them solutions on ground that help their people in day-to-day lives.
Yeah, I think that success isn't just India hosting this really important conference right now. It's really about India shifting the global conversation from the global South as a market for AI to the global South as a model maker for inclusive AI governance. And as Alpan had said, we really truly need a framework for AI governance that's actually usable between the global North and the global South. And what that means is actionable guidance that a minister in Kenya or Vietnam can take back and implement. And we need practical playbooks. How do you regulate AI with limited technical capacity? How do you build these multilingual data sets? How do you ensure AI procurement doesn't just benefit big tech? And I really believe that India can lead this because it solved a lot of these problems already. And then next, we need to have these concrete partnerships. We need funded initiatives with clear deliverables and timelines. So imagine things like regional AI compute sharing agreements so smaller countries aren't necessarily only dependent on big tech cloud services, or multilingual data sets that are collaborative where countries pool resources, south to south technology transfer where India's AI solutions in agriculture get adapted for sub-Saharan Africa, for instance. And that's truly what I see success looking like. But I also think it's really important for, countries to be able to coordinate and learn from each other. Success is really peer-to-peer collaboration, not replicating the north to south dynamic with the different geography. And so I really see that, being able to see the future of this is being able to make sure that resources aren't wasted and communities aren't harmed and trust isn't broken. And AI is going to transform development whether we're ready or not. And the question is whether that transformation is equitable, whether it's distributed, whether it's, co-created rather than imposed. And I really believe that this AI summit hosted by India can show the world that the global South isn't just adopting AI, it's shaping how AI should work for the majority of humanity. And for me, that would be success.
Right. And Alpan, my final question to you would be, there are many AI models that countries and companies around the world are working on. But what will really be successful in the India context that we can scale up for the world? What will allow us to get more investments from US, from Europe into our AI infrastructure to scale it up, which is commercially viable, profitable, and also helps people around the world?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I don't think, again, as I keep on saying, I don't think we should replicate what's happening in the global North. I think we have unique things to offer. We have large platforms where we can integrate AI, and examples are, for example, the Nikshay platform for TB, there's Portion Tracker, eSanjeevani. These are large health platforms, for example, that are consuming data, that are outputting data, and where AI is ready to be integrated, right? So we can develop AI models that are integrable into these platforms. We can develop models that are small, that fit on edge devices so that you have equity. You don't need these models to be used only in places where there's internet connections. You can use them in small villages. So this whole sort of small AI space is something that we can dominate, and we can develop lessons for the world. These will be models that benefit rural India. These will be models that benefit the urban poor, and these are sort of very viable pathways for commercialization.
All right, Alpan, Raval, and Anjali, thank you so much for joining us on the program with those sharp insights on what India can do in terms of bringing AI solutions to the global south. And all eyes now on the India AI Action Summit. We're taking a short break, but don't go anywhere. We get you some more global news on the other side. Welcome back. You're watching Global Lens. Tech giant Microsoft has pledged to invest over $17 billion in India. It's the largest investment ever in Asia. This investment will be in addition to the $3 billion that was pledged in January, taking the company's total commitments to over $20 billion. In a post on social media, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella has said that this investment will help build the infrastructure, skills, and sovereign capabilities needed for India's AI-first future. A delegation from US will be in India this week for trade talks. Both sides are looking at finalizing a framework agreement by year end. And ahead of that, US President Donald Trump has hinted that he might impose additional tariffs on rice imported into the country. Trump questioned why India was allowed to dump large quantities of rice in the American market without facing additional duties. The remarks came during a White House meeting where he announced a $12 billion support package for American farmers. However, Indian rice exporters believe that Trump's possible move might not have a major impact in demand for rice.
Tell me about India. Why is India allowed to do that? They have to pay tariffs. Do they have an exemption on rice?
No, sir. We're still working on their trade deal. So
Yeah, but they should be dumping. I mean, I heard that from others. So you can't do that.
They bought the largest brands at retail too, right? So they have an incentive to subsidize their products so that they can keep it on the shelf.
Yeah, who did that?
The Indians own the two largest brands.
All right, then we'll take care of it.
And speaking of Trump, the US president has cleared the way for NVIDIA to sell chips to China. The tech giant will now ship its H200 artificial intelligence chips to approved customers in China. However, the Trump administration will get a 25% cutout of all chip sales as part of the deal, which is unusual for the US government. NVIDIA is already paying a 15% cut to the US for selling a low-performing chip in China. In a post on social media, President Trump said that Chinese President Xi responded positively to the proposal earlier. This year, Taiwanese tech giant TSMC had announced a $100 billion investment in the United States. TSMC is the leading chip supplier to major US firms, including Apple, Intel, and India. More international news now. Israeli forces have carried out a barrage of attacks in southern Lebanon. The strikes caused massive damage to several homes, according to Lebanese officials. However, no casualties have been reported so far. In a post on social media, Israeli military said that it targeted several sites linked to Hezbollah. The military said several buildings and a rocket launching site were also hit. Ukraine is preparing to present a revised peace plan to the White House. Kyiv is set to propose alternatives to the US after President Zelensky again ruled out surrendering land. Zelensky's comments come as he met European and NATO leaders as part of a collective push to deter the US from backing a peace deal, which includes major concessions for Ukraine. This as Ukraine's northwestern city of Sumy was left without power overnight after a Russian drone attack. Lithuania has declared a national emergency after a surge of balloons drifting in from Russia-aligned Belarus triggered growing security concerns. The balloons have repeatedly disrupted operations as key airports are being treated by officials as a possible form of hybrid warfare. The government said the move was necessary due to national security interests. Fresh attacks between Thailand and Cambodia have killed at least 7 more people across the border. Thailand has said that at least 3 of its soldiers have died in the attacks. This has come a day after Thailand launched air attacks along its disputed border with Cambodia as the two neighbors traded blame for renewed fighting. Cambodian Prime Minister has urged Thailand to resolve the border dispute peacefully. Japanese authorities lifted tsunami warnings hours after a powerful 7.5 magnitude earthquake hit the northwestern region of the country. The earthquake injured at least 30 people and forced about 90,000 residents to evacuate their homes. Authorities have also told residents in the region to be on alert for the possibility of another earthquake within a week. At least 20 people have been killed in a fire at a 7-story office building in Indonesia. The fire started on the first floor around midday and quickly spread upwards, trapping workers. Early reports suggest a possible drone battery explosion or electrical failure could be behind the fire, though investigation is still on. The European Commission has launched an antitrust investigation into whether Google unfairly uses content from web publishers and YouTube to train its AI systems. The probe also focuses on whether publishers and creators were denied compensation or the ability to opt out of such use.
The European Commission has opened an antitrust probe to assess whether Google is breaching EU competition rules. That's in its use of online content from web publishers and YouTube for artificial intelligence purposes. The Commission announced the news on Tuesday. It said the investigation will examine whether Google is distorting competition by imposing unfair conditions on publishers and content creators, or by granting itself privileged access to such content and placing developers of rival AI models at a disadvantage. The Commission further said it was concerned Google may have used content from web publishers to generate AI-powered services on its search results pages. That's without appropriate compensation to publishers and without offering them the possibility to refuse such use of their content. The Commission added it's also looking at whether Google has used content uploaded to YouTube to train its own AI models, and without offering creators compensation or the possibility to refuse.
The social media ban for teenagers under 16 years of age has kicked off in Australia. Social media platforms such as TikTok, Instagram, YouTube and Reddit have been mandated to freeze around 2.6 million accounts. These platforms face up to 50 million Australian dollars in fines for violating rules. Wingsuit athletes Danny Roman and Fred Fugan performed a synchronized head-on crossing between the iconic Twin Towers of the Bahrain World Trade Center. The duo flew just 10 meters apart, launching themselves from a Black Hawk helicopter 4,000 feet above the ground before speeding towards the center line of the building. This is the first time anyone has attempted this. Finland's Valtteri Bottas has officially begun his F1 journey with the Cadillac F1 team just weeks before the new outfit makes its track debut during pre-season testing. Bottas is now fully focused on returning to the grid next season, marking the inaugural season for Cadillac in Formula One. NASA astronaut Jonathan Kim received a traditional Russian doll as a gift after returning to Earth from the International Space Station. The Russian nesting doll is a classic souvenir consisting of multiple wooden dolls of decreasing size placed one inside another. In a heartwarming gesture, firefighters dressed as Santa Claus delivered gifts to children at a cancer hospital in Athens. Using ropes, firefighters descended onto the balconies outside rooms, while another, also dressed as Santa, was lowered from a fire truck crane in front of the children's cancer unit. That's a wrap on another edition of Global Lens. Goodbye and many thanks for watching.